As much as I try to stay present, my mind inevitably finds itself fixated on the future. I ask myself lots of questions about the future. What am I going to have for lunch? What city should I settle down in? Where do I want to be 5 years from now? What will my currently non-existent children's future look like? I'm constantly making predictions and spinning up alternate realities. Maybe the one where I got that job at College Humor, or one which I chose to stay in that shitty relationship. There is a certain amount of it that's useless thoughts puttering around in my mind, but then there's the side that's productive. There's a place for the future that's filled with excitement, creativity, and wonder. A place where politics don't pull us apart. A world that's much brighter than the one we live in today. That is, if the robots and zombies don't destroy us first. This is episode 18 of The Ground Up Show. My guest today... Oh man, I totally screwed that up. I told you this is new. This is a new setup, and I totally messed it all up from beginning to end.
That sounded
I should
amazing.
just redo everything. My guest today is Jordan Lejuwaan. That's right?
Lejuwaan.
Lejuwaan. Damn
Yep.
it. He's the co-founder and CTO of Futurism, a media company that reaches over 5.5 million people on Facebook. They cover the breakthrough technologies and scientific discoveries that will shape humanity's future. Their mission is to empower their readers and to drive the development of those technologies towards maximizing human potential. I took that right from your guys' website. It's a lofty goal. So I want to talk with Jordan about how he got started, his path to get here, and how maybe all of us can maximize our human potential. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. That's quite the intro.
I'm trying to play with this thing, as I was saying to you, the live recording. It's just very tough to do everything yourself.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what my mom thinks later.
Yeah, exactly. Is she going to listen to this? Okay.
She's like, you're going to be on a podcast? Oh my.
Oh, that's amazing. Two of my biggest fans, I got to do a big shout out to two of my biggest fans, Lynn and Bill Pitting, my girlfriend's parents. Live in Sydney, Australia, and I was just we were talking to them on the car ride down to my brother's this weekend, and they were saying how they listen to every episode, which is amazing. And then I'm backtracking in my mind, is like, have I said anything offensive or wrong? And I'm like, oh, now I gotta be careful about what I say on the show. Cool, man. So thanks for being here. Tell me a little bit about like what you do right now, and I'm curious, why Futurism, why this project, why right now?
So right now my sole project is Futurism. I'm working on it for 2 years. That's why I moved to New York. And I'm CTO, so I do a lot of technical things there. But as anyone at Futurism will tell you, we do a lot of stuff. It's almost like 4 companies in one at this point. But how I got here was, to make a long story short, I dropped out of college in 2009. And ever since, I've been starting companies and trying things out and trying to figure out the one thing that I could focus all my efforts on to make the biggest possible impact on mankind. And at first, I thought that was really about like personal development, meditation, and psychedelics and consciousness, and just making yourself the best person possible and helping others do the same. So I started a website called High Existence that was all about that stuff, all about my experiences meditating for the first time in a bathroom stall in the dorms at USC. And I worked on that for a few years, and then the mission kind of changed, and I was like, okay, this is really important, and I made an impact in this space, but what's next? Like how can I even further refine what I'm working on? And then started a sustainable community up in Montreal, and thought that sustainability and communal living was like it and like everything, and this is how we were going to save the planet. And I'm still really amped up on sustainability and communal living. But while I was there, I became fascinated with just technology overall. And the reason being that technology is one of those things that can kind of force change, can force positive change. Media and people meditating and everything is fantastic. But at the end of the day, if someone, has a view that disagrees with, climate change or like things that are actually happening, something that can kind of force the hand is technology. Like a prime example of this is making solar energy cheaper than burning gas or coal, something like that, where it makes a choice that should be obvious, but is for some reason not obvious in our world, the cheaper, more efficient, simpler option.
So I want to go kind of back a little bit, hear a little bit more about your background. And so how early do you think we should start? Like, when does your story start? Is it in college, in the bathroom, or is it like in diapers? Or like, at what point do you think, did you always want to, were you always entrepreneurial? Is that always something that you had a drive to do?
No. Prior to college, I was like super academic, thought college was like it, and had, 0 period, 4 years in high school, and got all straight A's and studied for the SAT and all that. And then started doing things differently in college. So yeah, 2009 is about when it got interesting.
When you started doing drugs?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Is that it? What was it weed, or was it the psychedelics that kind of switched your thinking?
Yeah, definitely. They played a huge part. I started smoking weed when I was in junior year of high school, really loved it. And that just kind of got me started thinking differently. And then it got even more intense when I started experimenting with doing mushrooms in particular, and also some LSD and like random things, DMT, ketamine in college. Especially magic mushrooms, which are probably the most influential teacher that I've had to this day.
So what were some of those first experiences that you had with it? Because I've certainly heard a lot about people like Sam Harris talking about psychedelics and how they can trigger change. Steve Jobs using psychedelics and mushrooms. I guess, what was that first trip like? Were you like just terrified going into it, or like excited?
No, not at all. Well, actually, my first mushroom trip wasn't that interesting. I kind of thought it was just going to be like weed, but like 10 times crazier. And then that wasn't at all. It's like a totally different realm of experience. But the way I would describe the psychedelic experience is, especially as it pertains to LSD and mushrooms, is that you go through life and you see a bunch of things, and you learn, and you get older, and you start to develop these filters on the world, things that are no longer, you develop kind of like a rule set and like a mindset, and you kind of this way that you view the world. And this is really helpful, because if you were amazed by every single butterfly that flew by, you wouldn't get very much done. So we build up these filters, but it's really great to have kind of a reset every once in a while. And that's exactly what mushrooms does, is that it gives you a 6 to 8 hour period where all those filters are totally gone, and you're looking at the world anew, like from the perspective of a child. And that allows you to really reevaluate all these beliefs that you've built up over the last 18, 20, whatever, how many years, and reevaluate how you want to see the world and what's important to you.
So I feel like that's like probably the peak of what mushrooms could do, right? Like I've done mushrooms once before. I did it like 2 years ago, and it was, I do think it's one of those things, and I'm not telling everybody to go around and do it, but you have to experience it to really understand.
No,
okay.
Not everybody.
Yeah. My little brothers and sisters like stay away from that for now, at least. Like, obviously you need to do it when you're ready, when it's appropriate for you, and when you're actually stable. Because if you're unstable, it's probably not a good time
100%.
To get into any of these psychedelic drugs. So how often do you do these kind of psychedelics? Do you still do them quite a bit? Just kind of, give me an idea of it, and maybe even start from the original use.
Okay.
When you first
I'd say now I do them less so than I ever have before, and feeling like less of a need. And it kind of, it's like an ebb and flow. Now it's probably maybe every 3 months or so. Yeah. Whereas back in college, it was like maybe once a month, like maybe more, who knows?
It's certainly not a drug that you feel like you have, like you don't like obviously get it. I don't think you get addicted, do you?
Not at all. I mean, I'm sure that there are some people out there, but it's such an intense experience. It's not, it takes a lot out of you. It's like, it's a lot. So I've never done it and like felt the desire or the need to do it anytime soon after. And you might even say like, whoa, I'm not going to do that for a while. It's like one of those things.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about these kind of experiences that change your thought process and how you look at the world. I don't know if I had that.
At least you would know.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. Like I would know if I had that. I would say that like the experience in the moment was amazing, and it certainly, I think, got me to think differently, at least in the short term. But it certainly wasn't like a something that sustained itself. And I would say that I probably, it probably matters when you do something like this. Like it wasn't at a point where I was in college and I was starting to change my views and outlook on the world. I had done a lot of that before, like in college already. This was like a couple of years outside of college that I did it. So what were some of the major shifts? Do you remember, like, specifically what were the things that you changed your mind on and realized at that point?
I remember one comes to mind. It was actually one of my first bad trips where, I was in San Francisco. I decided to take a last minute trip up to San Fran after deciding to drop out with a few college friends. And we took a solid amount of mushrooms, and we were up on this like mountain somewhere in the middle, or not like a mountain, like a hill in the middle of SF, like right in the middle of the city, but it was like this gorgeous green thing, and the sun was coming down, and it was golden and beautiful, and we were all just like on cloud nine, just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be such an amazing day. And then like 10 minutes go by, and all of a sudden it's really dark and really cold and really windy, and we're in like, California costume from SoCal. Yeah. So we're like, oh shoot, it's cold. So we all end up going to like a Salvation Army and picking up some clothes to get warm. And then like after we kind of realized that we look like homeless because we're on shrooms, we're not able to pick like good matching like normal people clothing. We picked weird things. Yeah. So we're like kind of feeling homeless. Like we don't know where we're going. This is before I had an iPhone, so like we don't know where we're going at all. And then like I think an hour and a half in, we're like really not in a good place, and ended up at this church. Comically enough, there's like a church where we were kind of taking shelter for a little bit because we knew no one would be there. And it was so comical to have like almost this like mental breakdown at a church. But I just remember like not being in control of my mind and thinking like really negative, dark thoughts, and thinking that, wow, this is like such a different headspace. I've never been in something like this before. And thinking like maybe this is what it's like to have mental illness, where there's just things coming in all the time, and it's so intense you can't control it. And thinking like, oh my gosh, if this was my day-to-day life, I can't even imagine that. So even just that understanding, to see like what your mind could be like, and also having this like new amazing empathy for people that are dealing with mental illness. Like it'd be pretty hard to understand that without doing psychedelics or having some kind of like mental break.
Right.
So
there's a moment of empathy there where you can actually be in somebody else's shoes for a minute.
Totally.
And so you continue through college, you're experimenting with drugs, but you're also getting straight A's at the same time.
Oh, that was after I stopped going to class.
That was okay. So you dropped out of college.
So I kind of half dropped out. So after the first semester, I went home. I was pretty unhappy with the whole educational experience, unhappy with the social scene at USC. And found a book on my dad's bookshelf that was called The New Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And it was like a pretty perfect introduction to the whole self-improvement realm. It was kind of like a scientific approach to positive thinking. And that got me down the whole rabbit hole of like meditation and like the whole idea of like following your passion and, like we only live this life once and all those beautiful things. So I came back and got like really, really drunk one night. It's like a lot of substance related epiphanies, I guess. Yeah. And woke up more hungover than I'd like ever been before. And for some reason, in that really hungover state, I had this moment of clarity of like, this isn't what I want. I don't know what I want. I have no idea what it is, but I know it's not this. So I'm going to do not this and then see what else comes.
I think the hardest thing is that point where you are skeptical and cynical. At least me, I don't know if you experience the same thing, but where I'm very skeptical of the whole self-help scene and like just any book that's related to like you can do it and power of positive thinking and all this stuff. I remember being at a point where I was very skeptical of all that stuff. And even so, my friends started talking about this book, The Game by Neil Strauss.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, so
check this out. During that mushroom trip, I was with Neil Strauss's nephew.
Oh, fuck off. That's so cool.
Mike Strauss, you're listening. What up, bro?
Oh, that's so cool. That's so funny. My friends were talking about this book, The Game, and I was like, that is so corny. Like, come on, picking up girls. Like, you're going to read books about how to pick up girls. And then it's like I see it on the dining room table, and I'm like, pick it up and just start flipping through it. Yeah, exactly. Like I was not good with girls in college, and then I just start reading it, and it's a story, and it pulled me in. I was like, oh, this is really interesting. This is a pretty captivating book from the beginning, telling the story of this guy who just never been good with women. He was in his late 40s, balding, and then he went on this radical transformation of going into the secret society of pickup artists, people that are calculated and figure out how to speak and how to communicate with women. But the apart from just giving me some basic understandings of like social interaction with women, it helped me and motivated me to want to start to pick up self-help books. It started to bring the guard down a little bit. Mm-hmm. Did you have that guard up before you picked up that book?
No, not at all. I just didn't have any exposure to it whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I think I'm more so on the opposite side of you, where I'm more like naive and like, yeah, I'll try anything once. So I opened that, or I read that book, and like, yeah, there was no like skepticism whatsoever. It's like, this is it. This is it.
This is amazing. And then I think that's something that's really important, because people don't read much anymore. And I think that is the fact that to look out and seek out books. And I think there's something about the act of reading that's different and more stimulating than the act of watching a movie or even a documentary. What were some of those books that kind of inspired you early on from that first one that started to change your thinking?
I'd say the biggest one, well, there's two, Zen and the Art of Happiness. Really simple book, really short, but it's pretty much gives very, very basic logic as to why you should just be happy all the time. Mm-hmm. That one's great. And then the one that had a much larger impact on me was called Conversations with God. This one's really interesting. For this one, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. So the author, Neil Walsh, was this like Christian guy. He was like a longtime author, and he was like maybe 45, and he had never achieved success. He was like divorced and poor and unhappy. So he sat down one day and just started writing out his all of his like anger and his questions to God. He was like the Christian God for him. And for some reason that day he started like hearing answers back. And so that book is supposed to be his like actual conversation with God, and like whatever voice was coming to his head, write answers back. So, take that for what it is. And the answers are just profound. Like they just made so much sense to me. And they answered a lot of the questions that I had about life and the nature of reality, in different ways than I'd ever heard before. And that book like really shaped a lot of the way that I view the world now today.
Are these books that you come back to and read?
That one I've read 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like a once a year thing, but yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because it is also so important when these books come to you, because similar to that was The Power of Now.
Everyone says that.
Yeah, I got it right back here.
Yeah.
I got The Power of Now, like, because that's, maybe you were ahead of the game. I don't know if The Power of Now was out at that time.
I just didn't read it. So by the time it would have been recommended to me, I'd already like covered that stuff pretty deeply.
Right, because it's the ideas. It's real, and it's the truths within these books, not necessarily the books or the author themselves, that help us say like, oh, that's it. That's like, that just makes so much sense to me. And that's now one of these books, like The Power of Now. I remember reading it on the plane ride to start filming Minimalism, which was my first documentary. And like it, at any time when I'm feeling like my life's a little bit out of control, or I'm approaching something that I feel like I'm gonna fail, or I'm just have so much doubt about, I tend to go back to that book, because I feel like reading it is comforting, and it's to know that like you can if you just stay in the present, then, and even from that opening monologue, it's like, it's tough because we do tend to think about the future, and we do tend to think about the past. And then at what point are we content in the present and happy here? Do you find yourself meditating a lot?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like how often is it a practice that you...
Yeah, for me, it's morning walks. That's my favorite type of meditation. It's my preferred way because I'm never really super comfortable sitting down. So I find it hard to get into like a really deep meditative state unless I'm lying down or walking. And also I think walking is nice because it provides like a slight distraction. So you can, it kind of puts you on the precipice. You like kind of waver back and forth between being super, super present and distraction, and kind of leaves a window for ideas to come in that, doesn't happen for me as well with just seated meditation.
So how do you walk me through it, and how does walking meditation work for you? For
me, I start out with gratitude, which I think is just a great way to start your day and to start meditation, kind of get the serotonin going and realize why you're here again. So just, even stating like maybe 10 things that I'm thankful for. And then after that, I'll do a long stretch of just not thinking, maybe focusing on the feeling of my feet touching the floor and getting very, very present. And then after I'm like satisfactorily present, then I'll start posing questions, just, to the air pretty much. Questions that I have about things that are happening in my life right now, or just, things I want answers to, whatever it is. And then we'll pose a question and then kind of like start thinking through it and then like zone out. And then, a random answer will come through. I'll be like, oh yeah, definitely. Write that down on my phone really quick and then step back into it.
And what do you think your life would be like without those meditation
Substantially worse.
Yeah. In what ways?
Just the number of really impactful ideas and it's like solutions to issues that have come through those walks. I'm not sure where I'd be today without those ideas. Yeah.
And are these like your day to day? What should I have for lunch? Or are these the big questions about like what do I want out of life? What do I want to give?
Yeah, it's everything in between. I haven't tried what do I want to have for lunch yet, but I'm sure I'd get a really good answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything from like, hey, like I had a fight with my girlfriend last night. Like, how should I respond to this? Or like all the way to, is this the job I should be doing? Or like, what do I want to do with my life? Who am I?
So on that path towards currently the present day and futurism, when you left school, what happened after that? Like, did you live at home with your parents?
Yeah, I was at my mom's place and my dad's place for about 2 years while they worked on High Existence. I was pretty much just learning how to code. I didn't study computer engineering or computer science in college. I was just learning HTML and CSS as I went along to make the website a little prettier. And then eventually became like a full-fledged coder, which is what I do, or like it's like my trade now, I suppose. Sure. So like it wasn't like an overnight success or like I dropped out, then I launched this company. It was amazing. I traveled the world. Like that did not happen. It was 2 years of being at home, going back up to college, like maybe every 2 or 3 weekends to like party with my friends and then go home and ponder if I had made the right decision. Cause I was looking at Google Analytics at the website traffic and seeing like 20 people in a day and being like, all right. Yeah. All right. But
not there yet.
You put in the time and what you work on will grow.
Yeah.
And about 2 years after I dropped out, stumbled upon, just started raining traffic on the website. Wow. A few articles got picked up in a big way, and it ramped up pretty quickly from zero traffic to like a couple 100,000 a month, eventually up to like 3.5 million a month.
Wow.
And then I had a big website.
That's gotta be crazy. That's gotta be a crazy experience.
It was crazy.
Because that's the thing, and that's what I even think about in this podcast, and what I try to encourage other people to do is I think most people just give up before that point. That's 2 years of working on something with like 10 to maybe 100 hits a day, like never really seeing anything big. What kept you going through those 2 years?
Well, one, I was never going to go back. I was pretty stubborn. I still remember that that's not what I wanted. So it was like, I'm just going to do the thing that's in front of me. And then two, just having faith in small things. Like you get like one email from a reader being like, hey, this article is super impactful, and that keeps you going for like another month.
It is those little things that kind of keep pushing you forward in a lot of ways.
And it was fucking fun.
Yeah.
Like I was learning how to code, which I love to do, and doing all these things that I'd never done before. And all the time I was, learning about all these fascinating topics that I was writing about. So yeah, it was fun. It wasn't work.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing that I'm grateful for too, is that a very similar story. Right after college, I moved. Well, I technically moved to in with my sister in Philadelphia and tried to start like living like an adult, realizing very quickly that I couldn't pay rent, like getting a couple $100 in freelance video work and doing weddings on the weekends every once in a while wasn't going to pay the bills. In 6 months, once my student loans started rolling in, I definitely wasn't going to be able to pay that off. So I moved home with my parents. Just kept working, and because I liked it, because I really enjoyed it, and it was exciting. And obviously there are points during that time where you find yourself like not feeling so hot, like not feeling so great. You're literally in your parents' basement. You're like, this kind of sucks. Like all my friends are like in the real world or have jobs and have apartments and nice cars and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't have that. So there was an amount of discontent there in that moment. Did you find yourself in a similar situation where it's kind of pulling yourself back and forth, where you're like, oh man, I should get a job, but no, like I think this is the right thing for me to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it was ever a serious consideration, like going back or getting a normal job.
Yeah.
I was pretty hell bent on making it work, but yeah, definitely not nights of doubt for sure.
What were the websites or the what kind of, I guess it's like your big break, right? Like people sharing it and getting the word out there about your site. What do you remember? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, it was pretty much all StumbleUpon. There was 2 articles.
Oh, StumbleUpon. Are they still around?
They are, but it's not very big
quite
anymore.
As big. When I was in college, StumbleUpon was the shit. That was where everybody went. Yeah,
it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
2 articles that got really big. One was me explaining how the double slit experiment works. Quantum physics stuff. Google it if you haven't heard of it. It's fascinating. Mm-hmm. And then the other one was an article I wrote before the time of listicles. If you can remember that far back, it was called 50 Life Secrets and Tips. And that's the one that like pretty much everyone who knows about high existence found it through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
50, what is it? 50 Life Secrets and Tips?
Yeah. Even today, you kind of click on those though. Like, I see like, maybe there'll be one I've never heard before.
Yeah.
But back then, no one had ever done something like that. So it got like just hammered with traffic.
Yeah, that's funny because now that's basically what BuzzFeed and all these websites are now. It's just like the list, and it's kind of taken off a life of its own. That was one of the first ones.
Definitely in the self-improvement realm,
Yeah.
like life tips. It was for sure one of the first of those.
So you were there in the beginning of the self-development. What is it called? Lifestyle design? And
lifestyle design, blogging.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you were like kind of there in the beginning. Did you witness it? And I know early on, I was talking to Colin Wright, who, I don't know if you know him, he has a blog called Exile Lifestyles, and like very much blogs were the social network before social networks existed. So a lot of people did cross-posting and shared each other's blogs and all this. Did you have those kind of relationships with people that you built over the years? And what did you see in the beginning of this movement?
So I actually didn't do a lot of cross-posting. I was pretty much like heads down. I wasn't very social. I was just like learning how to code and not really like reaching out. Like I had a few people reach out to me who I'm still good friends with today, like Phil Drolet, who started the Feel Good Lifestyle like way back when, maybe a year after I started High Existence. But yeah, it was interesting because before High Existence, there was only a few like big players in the web for self-improvement. The one that was really big for me was Steve Pavlina.
Yeah. For smart people.
Exactly. Yeah. Self-improvement for smart people, whatever it was. Yeah. So there was a lot, there was more for like adults, I think. Some of the kind of like, older guys who had somehow transferred over and done web, but for people in my age group at the time, there was nothing.
What year is this?
2009.
2009. Yeah, that was it. That was the beginning because Josh and Ryan from the Minimalists, I think they started in 2009. Is that when all the blogging started? It was like 2008 or so?
Yeah, I think it was a little earlier, maybe like 2006 was the earliest. Like Zen Habits was around at that point.
My boy Leo.
He was big.
Leo literally like invented minimalism. Like at least the word. He was the first one that started using the word, and have you ever met him?
No, I still don't know how to pronounce his last name. No idea.
Babauta.
Okay.
I'm almost sure. I'm almost positive. I've worked with him a bunch. I never asked him. I just hear other people. I'm like, every time somebody says it, I'm like, oh, okay, don't forget that. And then I forget it. I'm almost positive it's Babauta. You know when you like reading a book and then you see somebody's name and it's just a really weird spelling, and then you're just like, all right, that's now just an image. Like it's not actually a word. You can't pronounce it. You never do. But then you're just like, okay, thing, and then you keep going.
But then you have to say it in public, and you kind of think that you know how to pronounce it, and then you realize 5 seconds before in your head that you really have no idea how to pronounce it.
It was like the intro to the show when I like when you told me your name before we started, how to pronounce your name before we started, and I still fucked it up.
Yeah, I'm not trusting you on Babauta.
I know. Yeah, I wouldn't either. Leo's amazing though, but so there's like an element, right, to like he writes amazing work, and he's obviously done it a lot, and he's perfected over a period of time, just like you did with your site in the beginning. It's just you're working at it for 2 years, you're slowly getting better over time. Like there's an element that like if you don't actually get better, like is it inevitable that people are going to get better at this stuff, or like
yeah, I mean, they'll get better. I don't know if they'll make it big, but they'll definitely get better.
Yeah, but now like if I started a blog, kind of like now if I started a podcast. like
why would you do that?
The ship has sailed, I think, a little bit on the whole the wave of podcasting, or at least podcasting 2.0. But it is difficult to I guess it's not guaranteed, obviously, but if you just keep working at something, like say if I do this podcast for 5 years, like it's gonna grow. Sure, I'm gonna get better, but is it actually going to be something that's sustainable?
Mm-hmm. I think you have to do something truly different that's just not out there, which is harder and harder to do.
Because you were doing something different at the time. Mm-hmm. But then what about futurism? Because futurism is, I guess every like major news site has a section called like technology or future that covers these topics.
They do now.
Oh, so this was 2 years ago, right? 2.5, 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have those.
It wasn't
at that time?
as focused yet. It was like everyone now is like all writing about future tech. The big names all have the category on their homepage. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was definitely newer.
You have a clothing line that you started as well. Was that an offshoot of the original blog that you had?
No, that was while I was up in Montreal. I just wanted to try out launching a Kickstarter because it was like early. It was 2013, so it was like pretty early on Kickstarter. Things were blowing up there. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the crypto space now, and I just like wanted to try something.
Yeah.
So yeah, tried launching a clothing company. Raised $72,000 to make the first batch of shirts, like just like 10 designs that I had sourced from 10 different artists. Gave the artists 20% of whatever sales they got. And
are you a part of them, or did you sell it off, or what?
No, I still own both.
Oh, you do?
So kind of the trend so far has been I do something till I lose interest or find something else that's more interesting, and then find someone who's more passionate about that than I am, or probably maybe ever was, and then train them to run it. So High Existence is still going. Rave Nectar is still going.
That's got to be hard to give up your baby, right?
No, not at all.
It wasn't hard for you.
No.
That would be really hard for me.
Well, when you have like a new baby, it's like...
Yeah. But then 3 months in, you're like, put it up for adoption.
Oh gosh, I shouldn't be a parent.
Yeah. Yeah. Watch out. I don't know. You're like, train somebody else to take over. Like, this is your new husband.
Let's find another metaphor. But
Yeah. But so it wasn't hard for you. That just came natural.
No, not at all. I don't know if it's that I get bored easily or just keep finding things that are more in line with who I actually am and what I want to do. Mm-hmm. But it inevitably happens usually like 2.5 years into something where I'm like, oh, okay, I know what the next thing is. Like I've learned a lot from this. This is really awesome. But I've now further refined what my passion is, and I'm ready to jump into it.
So how did Futurism come about then? What was who came up with the idea, and how did the company form?
That was my co-founder, and the original founder was Alex Klokas. So him and I been best friends for a while, and we were living together in Connecticut at some like random house that his dad owned. Like there's a whole story associated with this, but we were working on another company, fairly interesting one. It was called Habit. The idea was that you could bet money on developing better habits.
Oh, cool.
Habet with BET.
Creating incentives for people to keep their habits going.
Yeah. Which no one's ever solved. The idea was that you could say join a group of 50 people that want to start waking up early, and you could say, I'm going to bet $100 that I'm going to do that. I'm going to wake up every day by 6 or 7 a.m. for 30 days. And we'd send you a text message at 6 a.m. and you'd have to reply. And if you replied in time, then that would like check you off for the day. And if you succeeded at doing it for the entire month, then you would split the money lost by those that failed.
Is there gambling laws to get around there?
So actually, I know I'm very knowledgeable about gambling laws, and it wasn't gambling because it was totally within your power to win. As long as it's not based on luck whatsoever, then you're fine. Because it's within your ability to choose to wake up at 6 a.m. You're not rolling the dice in any way. So as long as you could consider
that like a sport in a way, right?
Totally.
Very similar to sports.
Yeah, it's even like less so than sports because it's not really competitive. It's just you.
You guys were working on this company, it didn't work out, and then
working on that, decided that and then we went for a walk one day and decided that I really wanted to start something that I would want to work on for the next 10 years, not like another 2 years. I kind of wanted to break the pattern. And him and our other co-founder were like, yeah, you're right. Like maybe like let's figure out something else. And meanwhile, Alex had started a personal blog called Sutera with my then girlfriend. She was only working on it for like maybe 2 weeks or something and then lost interest, but he kept going. I moved to Portland with the girlfriend. He moved to New York, kept working on Futurism. And kept calling me from New York, being like, hey dude, like this is getting bigger. Like we just got on the front page of Reddit. Like this is growing. Like you should come, we should move to New York. I'm like, nah, I can't, dude. Like I just moved to Portland because I had already dragged my girlfriend to Connecticut to like work on Habit with you. Like I can't just get up and leave again. Eventually that relationship ended, and almost simultaneously he got funding for Futurism. And I was like, oh wow, this is like legit. Okay. So I picked up and moved to New York, and been working on Futurism with him ever since.
I think that's such a good point, though, to say, what do I want to work on for the next 10 years? Because a lot of time, and I don't think it's wrong to say, what do I want to work on for the next 6 months or 12 months? And sometimes you have smaller projects, and that's totally fine. But when you're thinking about the big projects, you're like, if I could work on this for the next 10 years, would I be happy 5-10 years down the road still working on this thing? Is this something that I want to build over a long period of time? I think that will help people kind of gain an alignment on their values and what they actually want to pursue. So are there a lot of companies that just fund media companies like this? Is it pretty,
no,
it doesn't seem common.
No, it was a guy. It's actually our third co-founder. He met Alex at a meetup. The story of Futurism is extremely serendipitous. Like, there's so many like happenstance things that happened. I might as well tell it.
Yeah.
So what happened was, we're in the house. Alex, I designed the initial website, and Alex had kind of like inherited this infographic on Reddit called This Week in Science from this guy named Hashem. Hashem had been doing it on Reddit and getting the front page for like 6 months or so. It was like one of the most popular pieces of content on Reddit every single week, every week front page. And then Hashem was going back to school, didn't have time for this. And so he, I think he had been talking to Alex already, and he offered to let Alex take it over. And of course it was like, hell yes, I'll do that. Like 5,000 upvotes on Reddit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then we designed like a new version of it, and then like eventually started like backlinking to Futurism from it. And that's how the Futurism brand was built, was on the back of this infographic. And then kind of like the same time, Alex had been attending this meetup in New York City that was for futurists, and the meetup host, same thing, is like retiring and is like looking for someone to take over the meetup. And Alex is like, oh yeah, I live in New York, definitely, I'll do that. So he starts commuting from Connecticut to host this meetup, even though he's like pretty new to the space. And then at one of those meetups, he eventually meets Dan Sutera, who's our now co-founder, and Dan and a good friend of his were the initial seed investors for Futurism.
That's what the part of chance and luck, and like you can't predict that, but you have to be ready for it when it comes. So like you bust your ass, and you have to be prepared when you get these moments of, say, an investor or somebody who wants to collaborate on a project with you. You have to be ready.
Right.
That's how it happened with minimalism, where it was, for me, I had gotten enough work that I was ready to take a risk. Like I was conservative enough with my money and my savings that I was like, all right, I could take 3 months off and just work on a project for free. Ended up being 2 years working on a project for free, but I was able to do that because I had worked my ass off before I got to that point. So you come to New York and you start working on this project. You're kind of using all these skills that you had developed before to bring it into Futurism. How does the site and the community grow from there? So
it's 3 dudes in an office above a bagel smith.
Which bagel smith?
The one right here.
Oh, really?
Like literally a block away from us. Yeah.
Oh my God, that bagel smith is amazing.
I know.
It's so good.
Yeah. If you know, say hello to Carmen if you see her there.
Oh, really?
Say Jordan or Poyito says hi.
Oh, no shit. Is she the one that's like at the register?
Helps you. No, probably not the register. She like helps you with your bagel order.
Dude, I know Carmen. I'm positive.
Oh yeah.
God damn it, those are good. What's your go-to bagel? At the Bagel Smith.
So she makes a special one where she carves out like the bread so you can fit more into it.
No.
And then she'll do like whatever. It's like a special thing she makes, but it's the salmon, cream cheese, like avocado, like whatever.
It's like multiple cream cheeses.
Yeah, I don't know what she does. It's magical.
That's unbelievable. You know what though? I don't know. I like more of a conservative spread. I don't want like a huge. I don't know. I don't want more cream cheese and bagel.
It's not an everyday thing.
Yeah. That's when you're feeling good, when you have something to celebrate.
Yeah, big traffic day.
There was actually, I just recently saw a story. This might have been this is probably when we moved in. But somebody was like robbed from there. Like somebody climbed up the back fire escape.
Oh, I was in the office when that happened.
What?
Yeah. They came in and asked us like if we knew anything. We're like,
oh, no way.
No. Yeah.
I thought those were apartments. There's actually like an office space, or did you turn an apartment into an office space?
It's pretty much an apartment, but they're renting it as office space.
Oh man, this is crazy.
Like hyper startup mode.
Yeah. That's so cool, man. I can't believe you were right here. Yeah, because we moved about 2.5 years ago, I guess, when we first moved in. So that must have been when you guys were over there.
Yeah.
So you're like crazy startup mode, going to the Bagelsmith. How does it grow from there, I guess? And kind of what are some of those early wins?
Mm-hmm. So I think that number one thing Futurism has done really well the entire time is hire amazing people that are really passionate about the space, super hardworking, and like just really believe in the mission of Futurism. So now we've scaled from those initial 3 people to 17 people in the office, and I don't even know, between 30 and 45 people abroad. The number fluctuates so much I can't keep track. So just an amazing group of people. Each person is just hyper skilled at their niche in the company. But I would say one of the major early wins is we brought in a woman named Jolene Creighton. She had started a community called From Quarks to Quasars. And Alex is amazing at this stuff. I realize it's like the 3rd time I'm even mentioning it in this podcast of him doing this. Mm-hmm. But Jolene had started this community, and her partner was kind of like going back to school, and she had a lot of college debt, and like was a scientist first and foremost, not a businesswoman, didn't really know how to monetize, and was looking to kind of just, join something else or sell From Quarks to Quasars or whatever it was. Alex somehow got wind of this by just being a friend to Jolene on Facebook. And eventually we like acquired From Quarks to Quasars and merged their Facebook following, which is at the time, I think it was like 2.7 million, into ours, which at the time was like maybe 80,000 something. Like, so we went from like 80,000 fans to like, almost 3 million fans. Mm-hmm. So that was like huge. That was like on par with him acquiring that infographic.
Yeah.
So we went from like small media company to a legitimate media company pretty much overnight for, not too much. And then we also got Jolene, who's like today just like this fucking rock star writer, editor at Futurism that still handles all of our editorial.
So then I imagine at that point you guys can move out of the apartment on top of Bagelsmith?
Nope, still were there for like another year. So
really?
we only moved, I think last December to our more like legitimate office.
Oh, that's cool.
By McCarran Park, yeah.
But it's obviously continued to grow quite rapidly since then, like almost doubling over that time. Mm-hmm. What do you account that for?
Let's see. Another big thing was we got on the like captioned, like short, 60-second captioned videos on Facebook trend really early on, before any other like science publication was doing it.
And do you want some more whiskey?
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
Cool. What was
so they're the videos that you've seen a billion times on Facebook. They're Facebook mutes videos by default. So there'll be a video and they'll have like captions come in that explain like what you're saying, like this new hoverboard does this.
Right. Those are huge.
Yeah. Like they're like half the videos you see on Facebook now are those. So we are one of them.
And then the CNNs and all of them are doing it now. If you go to their website, everybody's doing it.
Yeah. So we got like a bunch of lucky breaks and like getting into certain trends early. Mm-hmm. This is a big one, and that's still to this day is like a major driver of new likes and followers on Facebook, which is the major driver of traffic to our website.
So it's kind of this like blend between written content and video content. But we had talked about this when we met. It was probably like a month or two ago, that you were saying how video is going to be so important in the future of a lot of these media companies. I guess I'm curious because I frequent a couple news sites. It's kind of hard not to. I just kind of pick a few of them and go to them every once in a while. MSNBC is one of them, and they're different from any other of the mainstream media news organizations. Is I feel like that online, it's all video on their at least their mobile site. It's like that's all they're trying to do is get you to watch a video, and I feel like I don't want to do that. Maybe that's because politics are different, but I guess why do you think video is going to be more? Is it more important than the written articles, or is it just growing compared to it?
Yeah, I think it's growing. It seems like the trend, I mean, there's still going to be like the New York Times, the amazing long form content. But I think the trend is more towards like, the shortest, most concise article possible that still has like quality content, because we have so much going on in our lives. We don't have time to read like a long news article that has fluff and intros and outros and all that shit. So I think it's like written content is kind of trending down to like really short articles. And then on the flip side, on video, video is still like captivating enough for us to like stop what we're doing and actually watch it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why written content isn't, it's not very visually interesting. It's harder and harder for people to read books nowadays, but people are still watching videos or still watching movies because it is that visually interesting.
Right.
So that's why, like, we have to capture people's attention, and video does that.
Once you do get somebody to start watching a video, I think it's probably the trust that you build with them. They're like, oh, they make amazing shit, and like they rarely have videos that I wouldn't want to watch. It's probably people that are on their commute, say if they're going on the subway where they can actually watch something, or on a train, they can actually pull up a video and watch it. It's probably going to get more and more so. It's funny, it reminds me of my buddy Billy Disney, who I had on the show. He actually was one of the first people to start the video at The Verge. But like when you think about it, like The Verge was pretty early on. Like all they wanted to do in the beginning was just these cell phone reviews. And then he was like, no, we should like try to like, find stories to focus on. And then they started joining some of the journalists to actually film the written stories that they were doing to accompany it. And then it just took off from there. And like Vice was around at that point, and it was starting to grow, but now it's everywhere. Like everybody's making video content, and it's actually there's a whole format of like the short form doc storytelling, which is huge now online, that wasn't just a couple years ago. So like it is growing, and I just wonder how big it's gonna grow. And I wonder if it's a way that could you create something that's a media company that was just focused on videos?
Oh yeah, that's a big conversation that's happening right now. I just read an article yesterday about like, all the companies that say they're just pivoting to video. That's like a phrase right now in the media company.
Everybody loves pivoting.
Space. Yeah. Love pivoting, love video. They love pivoting to video. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if I was going to start a media company today versus 3 years ago, I would just do video too.
No shit. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? And it's obviously, you got to be in like a big crew of internal video people, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I'm curious about the skills that you see that are important, because like when you're talking about the text and the video, you need animators. Like, say you're going to start a media company from scratch. Mm-hmm. How does it look?
I would get
I'm going to take this idea.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
See if we can get some funding for it.
I would hire as many full stack video people as possible. And like full stack in an engineering sense is like someone who can do the front end and the back end. They can do everything. And that's just one engineer that can build an entire app.
Sure.
And on the video side, it's someone that can shoot, like it can script, shoot, edit, and like, possibly even share after that. Mm-hmm. But
there's more and more of those people today. Right. And that was me when I mean, it still is me, but it's like when I started out, see, that's the thing. That's the problem. If people are going to join a large production company or take the traditional route, is there going to be a PA? And then in these big production companies and these big films and commercials, you tend to get designated a role. You're on the camera department, or you're in the grip department, and you cannot go across these two different or three. There's probably 10, 15 different departments on a film set. Mm-hmm. When I got started out, it was the DSLR do-it-yourself filmmaker. You buy the camera, you own all of the equipment. You figure out, like, I'm literally doing I did like local TV commercial spots for hardware stores and for Verizon wireless retail stores, but not like Verizon wasn't paying me. It was like the chain retailer was paying me. Yeah. But I would do these interviews where it would be two cameras, and I'd be monitoring the audio, and I'd be actually doing the interviews and asking people the questions and trying to think about what do I want to ask them next, while also monitoring both video and audio at the same time, and then taking all that back and then editing it and cutting a 30-second spot, 45-second spot, understanding how to tell a story. I think there's more and more people that are like that, and like today there's more than there has ever been, but I still personally, I would love to find more people like that I could hire to bring on to shoots I do. I find it hard to find those people. Oh yeah,
like on the engineering side, they call full stack engineers unicorns.
Sure,
yeah, I really like.
Yeah, I have heard that.
Yeah, unicorn. Yeah, yeah, they are hard to find, but higher in demand. And now the equipment and the software are so fantastic that it's even possible to be that person. So
because the more and more you're in a space, the more you start to look at the small details, because you get the big stuff figured out pretty quickly. And then it's like, all right, how do we make this incrementally better? How do we, like you said before, differentiate ourselves from other people? How do you do that? How do you do something different?
That's a great question.
Because it's like everything has been done, right?
No, not at all.
No,
I mean,
totally
like, the world's
done.
like shifting and
Sure.
changing, and new shit's coming out. Like we have VR now.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. Like,
Have you done a lot of VR stuff?
so we haven't created VR stuff. We have a headset in our office that we always show people at our happy hours, and anyone that comes in are like, "Have you tried VR?"
And which VR is this? Is this the
We have
Oculus?
the HTC Vive.
Is it pretty amazing? Because I actually haven't done.
Dude, really?
Yeah, I've only done the paper ones.
Oh no. That's like a Game Boy versus a PlayStation 3.
Oh, really?
I swear to God. Yeah.
No shit.
Because you got to have the controllers. You
Yeah.
have like something in your hand. You can see your hands. That adds a whole
Oh,
other
really?
layer of like.
Yo, I
it
might have to
being
like
real.
come by your office
Oh, definitely.
before I move.
We're having happy hour on Friday. You come by.
Oh shit! Oh, what time?
Like 6.
Oh, actually, maybe I can do it.
Cool.
I might be able
Like
to do
6
it.
to like 9.
Yeah, I had to see.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm going to the cabin in the woods this weekend. It's it's like my second to last weekend in New York.
Yeah.
What's the future of it then? I guess like where does it go?
So it's so early right now. You
Yeah.
know, it's I think Oculus Rift was funded on Kickstarter like 2012, maybe even later. It might have been 2014. Like it's not been around for a long time, and this is the first iteration. So it's like if you think on video games, if you think back to like the NES or like the Super Nintendo versus what we have today, like if you apply that same scale of getting better to VR, like this is just the beginning. And when you put a headset on right now, that's not the paper, not even the Samsung Gear. That's not good enough. If you're out there, try a Vive or an Oculus. You're there. You have all
Really?
these like the
Is it
science
really
is
like that?
Oh yeah. So you have enough cues. Like you basically need like two sensory cues to tell your brain that it's real. So you have like, the visual cue. If you turn your head to the left, then you the thing you're seeing moves to the left. Same thing with the audio, it shifts when you move. And then even better, if you have your hands and you with the controllers and you can kind of see your hands. So the more and more evidence that your brain has that what you're looking at is real, the more it believes it's real. So the experience that I always show people for the first time is called Richie's Plank Experience. And this is a super basic app, but I think is the best initial demo of what VR can do. You start off at the foot of a skyscraper. You turn around, there's an open elevator. And you step into the elevator, and then there's always this aha moment where you have to click one of the elevator buttons to like go up, and people like kind of ask as they're doing it, like, oh, what do I do next? And then they hit the button. They're like, oh shit, like because there's feedback. It like rumbles in such a way that it makes it feel like you hit a button. And then the elevator doors close and you go up for 15 seconds or something. And you have this like looming sense that you're getting really high, really high. And then
This is like the Matrix, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Like that one scene of the Matrix
it's like
where
the
he's got to
jump.
jump. Yeah.
No, totally.
Oh,
so
man.
the elevator doors open, and then there's like a thin wooden plank that extends from the edge of the elevator out above the skyline, right? And you're super high up in this like kind of New York-esque skyline. And then you have me next to you being like, okay, walk out on the plank. And everyone's just like, I know it's not real.
Yeah.
But my brain is freaking out.
Wow.
If you think about the reptilian brain, it's like, okay, I know this isn't real, but like just in case it is, I'm going to input a ton of fear, just like as if it was actually happening. So I'd say like half the people, can walk out, but they can't jump. And then the other half are like bold enough and you can jump and you can actually fall like all the way down.
What?
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
And then when you hit the ground, you actually die in real life. That's insane.
The body cannot live without the mind.
I got to ask, so you're talking about all these sensories, your brain telling you that it's real. Have you ever done VR on shrooms?
No,
Yeah.
I haven't. Which
Is it something you want to do?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You just have to, I don't know if you could go on shrooms in the office. It might not be the best working environment.
Futurism's pretty chill.
Maybe
On the weekend, it's fine.
Maybe that'd be part of the happy hour. Yeah. Maybe on Saturday.
That's why it's called the happy hour.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't tell you is everyone's on shrooms.
Yeah. So you were saying, what are the sensors? It's like because it's the audio, the visual, and then once you get the hands involved, that's 3 different planes that kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah. Like we don't have, smell and taste yet, but, working on it.
That was an idea that I feel like I had when I was a kid. When I was like, they could just pump smells into the movie theaters, and they probably tried to do that, but that's
There's like a 4D theater in New York. You'll pay like $40 for a movie, and apparently it's all one smell.
What's the smell? And it's like one movie.
Yeah.
It's just like fart.
My friend did it. He said it wasn't a good smell.
It wasn't a good smell. That's so creepy.
Oh, it was a King Kong that he saw. So I was like, did it smell like King Kong? He's like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It smelled like a basement. Like most movie theaters that I go to around New York are like smell like a basement anyway.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about the future of VR. Like, I think obviously the sports games, that's fun, right? That's tough though, because then it's like you're playing baseball, you swing, you hit the ball, you run. What do? You run in place?
So they're working on this. Yeah. So there are prototypes of treadmills. Actually totally working prototypes of treadmills that are predictive. They know exactly where you're running. So they'll kind of like, they're 360 treadmills. So they can move in any direction, and they'll move in the opposite direction of where you're running. So you effectively stand in place. But even that's not perfect, because I don't know if you've ever like think about like running on a treadmill blindfolded. Like it's slower. It's not like moving like you're running. Yeah. But even still not perfect. Yeah. There's one where you're kind of like leaning on these I don't know, like a bar, I guess, like a circular bar, and then you're kind of like walking in place. Like you wear socks and the surface is really slick, so you can kind of like walk in place. But no one's really figured it out. And the thing that's really exciting is like pretty much like the Matrix, where eventually we figure out the brain, and then we can make this real.
What do you mean?
No, I mean like figuring out the nervous system, plugging directly into the nervous system, and like jacking into the brain's visual and audio systems, and actually putting you into another reality. The exact same thing.
No way.
Totally. Yeah. Why not?
How? Yeah. I mean, why not? Like, you could say that about anything. Why not?
Well, yeah. I mean, everything's gonna get figured out at some point once we like kill ourselves. But
sure. Fingers crossed that that doesn't happen.
Well, we have another investor. His name is Brian Johnson. He started Braintree Payments, which was bought by, which bought Venmo and then was bought by PayPal. And he's taken all that money and he started a company called Kernel. And his sole mission is to like figure out the brain and allow us to, enhance our brain through invasive chips in the brain. So enhancing our cognitive speed, our random access memory, our hard drive space, so to speak. The eventual goal of that would be to have, a direct input-output like plug into the brain. And Elon Musk is doing the same thing.
I was going to say, this is like the Elon Musk supervillain shit that's going on right now.
Yeah, but Elon's the man. Like, he's not a supervillain.
No, he's amazing. It's all good. No, he's incredible. I love him. Are you going to, I mean, you're in New York, so getting a Tesla 3 probably wouldn't be
unfortunately, no cars here, yeah.
Man, but that's like, I'm like, I want that shit. That's cool.
Yeah. There's a guy in the office that pre-ordered one. He's pretty stoked.
Oh, really? Yeah, because I mean, they're rolling out sooner than expected. I think this is the thing that, and going back to that opening statement, it's like there's a lot of excitement about the future. I feel like today, and maybe it's just I'm hyped up on this conversation, but there's more excitement about the future than there is kind of the gloom and doom that often pervades, especially when you talk about climate change and a lot of the stuff and the political climate. Are you optimistic about the future?
Always. Yeah. Hyper optimistic, potentially to a fault.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all the problems we've created can be solved. I think that now we just need to focus on like better using our resources as a human species and kind of coalescing and thinking about ourselves as one species so we can solve these problems instead of, like we have way bigger problems than like country to country here. Like we have climate change is, that's all you need to say really. Like we need to figure this shit out. Let's work together. Mm-hmm. Another great example of technology kind of forcing the hand is that now we have like, Uber and Google and like every other fucking company on the earth trying to figure out self-driving cars, which will make the demand for car market so much smaller. And instead of you'll probably have like 1/10 the amount of cars, because instead of like a bunch of cars sitting around not driving at all, you'll have self-driving cars that are constantly in movement, picking people up. So just right there, it's like technology saying, actually, we're going to have like 1/10 of the amount of cars. We're going to reduce the manufacturing of automobiles by like, 1/10.
I thought Tesla said, or not Tesla, Elon Musk said that traffic will get worse with self-driving cars.
Did he say that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I could look it up. Let me look it up.
I would be really curious to hear his reasoning for that.
I think it's because...
I don't think I've ever disagreed with Elon, but...
Elon Musk... self-driving car traffic worse. Let's see if that's too big of a...
No, I think you nailed it.
Self-driving cars will actually make it worse by making vehicle traffic more affordable. So I guess that's his point,
Okay.
is that since you don't need a driver in the car, like think about an Uber. If you're going to take an Uber across the city, it may cost $5 now, but without the person, it's going to cost like 50 cents.
Right.
So more and more cars are going to be moving around. All the people that were on the subways, it's cheaper to take a car. But then if you have all those people taking cars,
I think that's a really good point in the near term when we have a mixture of human drivers and robotic drivers on the road. But when we eventually have, like, let's just hypothetically, I don't know when this is going to happen, but 100% self-driving cars on the road, and they're all talking to each other. And they can say like, hey, you're going here and this person's in a big hurry versus me, I'm going here. And they can all, use in very intense machine learning driven algorithms to determine the best route and the most efficient way. I can't imagine the traffic will be worse.
And I think also long term, we'd have to probably redesign the road systems to fit that.
Maybe.
Right?
I don't know.
Because the current,
that's an interesting question.
The current infrastructure and the current roads weren't even designed for what they're used for today. Like they were designed for short commutes, not these like long distances, 150 miles. But that's one of those things that's like, but this is what's great about capitalism. And this is that balance between small government and big government, is that it's not a perfect system. Like capitalism isn't perfect. Like there are people that perhaps get left behind, but it's the only system that works. It's the only, like there's not many other ways to go about it especially in terms of technology, right? And developing technologies for the future.
I think it's the best system we've come up with so far. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Is
there any theories about future systems or no?
I'm a big fan of universal basic income.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's actually contrary. That's almost like an aspect of socialism or bigger government.
You could also say it's like a fantastic upgrade to capitalism, though.
An upgrade to capitalism. And how so?
Because I think capitalism, the success of capitalism, is a lot of it hinges on the ability for people to come up with new ideas and like create companies and create innovative things to like push humanity forward. And that's like one of the primary functions of basic income, is it provides a safety net such that, let's say you have a great idea, you want to start a podcast, but like, you haven't never done a podcast before. You have this thing to fall back on, say $1,000 a month, like the average suggestion for basic income, that you can live on while you figure out how to set up microphones and figure out like what guests you want to do, you want to speak to. So it provides a safety net so people can take the time off from these things and be creative and learn and build the things that they actually want to work on.
What is the evidence for that? It's only been kind of tested in small communities, right? Because obviously somebody that was on the right would say that what about, so people are just going to have an income, it's just going to actually not encourage them to work hard to make a living, to create and innovate.
So that's a really important thing to note about basic income, is that it's the basic part. $1,000 a month in New York is not, you couldn't do anything here.
That's my alcohol budget here. I drink a lot.
Hence the whiskey. In middle America, you'd probably have a better standard of living, definitely. Yeah. But even still, you're going to be far below the standard of living of your neighbor. And us being humans, we're going to want the same level or more of the neighbor. There's still that incentive. It's very much like the basics, so you can still get by on, top ramen and pay rent and send your kids to daycare. Maybe not even that. Like $1,000 a month is nothing.
No, yeah.
It's just so you're not on the street and you're not hungry. You have your basic needs taken care of. That's it. You totally have the same incentive you do now. The only thing is you won't be on the street and you can take time off when like shit happens. If you get, if you get sick or something, or if you have a kid, or if you want to take time off and think, or if you want to start a new company, you have this thing that enables you to live.
So there's going to be people that naturally don't use that money wisely. This is not like food stamps, right? You're not actually saying you have to spend this money on such and such. It's just giving them a blank $1,000 check.
Yeah. So two things on that.
Yeah.
So a number, like one of the top arguments that people have against basic income is that especially poor people are going to take this money and spend it on drugs and alcohol and prostitutes and like gambling and whatever else. And there's been a number of studies that have proven this completely false. There was one, I believe it was in New York, and they gave these homeless guys, I'm forgetting numbers, it's been so long, but something like, let's say $20,000 or maybe $30,000. And they tracked how these guys spent this money over the course of however many years it took them to spend all of it. And they didn't dictate how they spent it. They didn't say there'd be repercussions for how they spent it. They just said, let us know what you spent it on. That's it. That's no strings attached whatsoever. And they tracked them over the course of a few years. And it was something like 80% of them after 2 years were in homes, were in like relationships, and had solid jobs. And I think the big difference there is that when you give a homeless guy $5 on the street, he doesn't have a way out. He can't start a job. He can't go put a down payment on a rental or anything like that. That's just enough for him to like get something today, pretty much, which is, and like, if that was happening to me, I'd be like, yeah, maybe I'll get a beer instead of a sandwich, or like, instead of like saving up for something, because it's such an incremental amount. But if you give me like $1,000 a month, and I know I'm going to have that going forward, no matter what, I'm going to start thinking about the future and what can I build with this? It's a totally different thing. And then the flip side of that is that UBI, Universal Basic Income, is actually a substantially better system that we have now with Social Security, because Social Security is actually a disincentive for people that are unemployed to work. Because let's say you're on Social Security now, you get maybe $800 a month to do nothing at all with no limits. You can get that for as long as you can fill out the paperwork. When you get a job, let's say you get a job and you're working full time and you're making minimum wage, so you make like $1,200-$1,400 a month. You're making an incremental amount more for working full time versus doing nothing at all. Sometimes you can even make less with a job than you would on Social Security. So your incentive to work it's negative.
Where does the money come from? Because like with Social Security, right?
That's the third question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the first thing you can do is cut out all existing Social Security programs, food stamps, Social Security in general, Medicare. It's very up to debate as to what you should keep and what you should cut. But cutting all of those takes a huge chunk out of it. I think the number is $2.8 trillion for UBI. Don't quote me on that. It's 30 glasses of whiskey. However, so that brings it down to an amount that's manageable. And then you talk about things like doing carbon taxes, which solves the sustainability problem we've been talking about, with cutting our military spending, which is substantial and I would say unwarranted. Like defending our country, which I would say it's not as big of a problem as we think it is. If we just stop waving the big stick, people would stop throwing tiny sticks at us. That compared to the problem of making sure that every single American is taken care of. Well, let me make this super simple. Yeah. One way to fund that very simply is a 40% tax across all classes. That's it. 40% flat tax. That's it. That provides enough money for basic income.
I feel like, why wouldn't that work?
Good question.
So I guess if somebody's low income earning, then they're getting hurt more. But then they're getting the basic income.
You're getting UBI. So let's say they're getting $12,000 a year. So that's cutting into, if you're making nothing, then you're just getting $12,000, and then it kind of moves upward from there.
What are the challenges? This is massive. And this is one of those things that's like, maybe we test. This is kind of like the legalizing of weed. It's like maybe we test it in a few states. But like also the inevitability, and this is the main driver of this conversation, the fact that a lot of jobs are gonna be lost, and there's no way around it. We need to figure out a way for people to actually be able to get their basic necessities met, right? When is this happening? And like it seems like it's coming quicker than anybody.
So amazingly, it's becoming a pretty popular topic of conversation. Like the average person has like seen an article about it, maybe remembered what it was, which is cool. Futurism writes about it all the time. We're big fans. And the Nordic countries, those lovely Europeans, are attempting to pass bills that would do some kind of experiment. They're already doing some form of it because they have way better systems of Social Security than we do. So some country's going to pass it at some point, which is going to be an amazing experiment to show how it works on a large scale. And judging by the experiments that have been done on a small scale, which are numerous, I don't know if it's over 100, but many experiments, everything from small communities in India to Africa to cities in the US and Canada, like everything. And they've all been positive. I've been trying to find arguments against UBI for a long time. I've been asking people, saying on podcasts, email me, anything that you think is a really good argument against this, let me know, because I can't find them. Let's see where I was going with this. So I think that either a country will pass it and the evidence will be so overwhelming that other countries will start to experiment with it as well. Or on the flip side, it will be something that is forced through technological unemployment. So we have big trends right now, robotics, self-driving cars, AI, things that are going to and 3D printing, things are going to decimate industries, and like even more than decimate. That interesting fact, decimate means to bring down to 1/10 of what it was before.
Oh yeah.
Whereas I think it's going to be even worse. It's going to take it down to 0. So we have the most popular occupation in the US is truck drivers. And we already have 3 or 4 companies that are like on the cusp of launching self-driving trucks. So what happens to those millions of truck drivers? What do? When they don't have a job anymore? They're not educated. They're probably older, so they're not going to go back to school. It's kind of like too late in the game to teach an old dog new tricks. It's not a fantastic job market, especially for those that are unskilled. There's not really options for those people. So that just adds to the amount of unemployment. And if you go back to the Great Depression, it wasn't like 50 or 60% unemployment. It was like 24% unemployment, which is achievable if you combine self-driving cars taking out truck drivers and taxi drivers and like every driver in like delivery men, all that. And then you have 3D printing destroying the manufacturing industry. And then you have AI taking out jobs left and right, like customer service, or like even like people, lawyers and coders, things that are generally considered to be experienced required positions are not safe. And even if they're safe in the near term, 5 to 10 years, they're definitely not safe in 20 years or 25 years, 50 years. Let's go out 50 years. Like the job market as it stands there's just not going to be as many jobs. And people like conservatives often will say, okay, but technology is also creating jobs, but that's not true. It's creating jobs, but it's on a much smaller scale. Like the billion-dollar companies of today are run by, several hundred people versus tens of or hundreds of thousands of people of yesterday. Mm-hmm. Because technology is enabling the average person to do so much more than the person of 10 or 20 years ago. This is like a problem that's not going to go away. So either we figure out UBI is a great solution in the meantime, or we get to 25% unemployment. There's massive civil unrest, and it's forced to pass because what the fuck else do you do?
Right. There's an outrage. There's a demand for it. There's no other way to go about it than to have a universal basic income.
And think about this. One of the most, I think most people that consider this to be capitalist. We have the recession in recent history, and what does the government do? A stimulus package. What does that sound like?
That's actually great.
Let's send out a check to every American. That sounds a whole lot like UBI.
Yeah.
So from a capitalist perspective, you could also look at it like that. It's just like an annual stimulus package that you give people so they can inject money back into the economy.
This is the biggest problem. This is the most pressing problem that we're facing over the next few years.
It's like up to that years. And climate change. I think this is something that's the kind of is like a root problem that solves a lot of the other problems. Because if you think about like how many Einsteins we missed out on because they were stuck working a shit dead end job, and they really wanted to like, they were like curious about this whole like theory of relativity, but they really needed to make money for their family.
Yeah.
Like how many geniuses have we missed out on? How many amazing companies? Like, and if you really think about it, there's, a very, very small percentage of the population is creating things that are really drastically changing things. Elon Musk is a fantastic example of that. And like, just, what if he just never got out of that fast food job?
Yeah.
Ice cream truck.
All right, podcast is over.
We have ice cream trucks now.
Very cool. We do. Yeah. That's
so
it's really coming in that.
It's nice. I hope you guys are enjoying this.
Yeah, this is the background music for the ground show.
Is this one of your sound bits? That's
one of my cues right there. It's literally right outside.
I think someone's ordering ice cream.
Yeah.
Right
So
now.
I've got ice cream sandwiches if you want. Yeah, it's funny because I feel like some of these podcasts could be like 12 hours long if you really are trying to like delve into something, but it's nice to at least give people who haven't heard about any of this stuff a little bit of a primer. One thing that we do on this show is called Quick Questions. You want to get into quick questions?
Oh yeah, sounds great.
What's that?
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Is that the ice cream truck again?
Yeah. This is I just started adding music cues and I fucking love it. Isn't this
It's so good, dude.
Yeah. So Quick Questions is a game where I ask quick questions, but you can take as much time as you want. We've only got about 10 minutes left on this show. So feel free to give as much information as you want. This is the best music cue that I've come up with.
Did you record this from an elevator?
Yeah,
you're like
I
in there,
did
you're like,
actually.
I gotta get this.
Yeah. So actually, well, real quick, first question. My big goal on this show is to interview The Rock.
Oh, okay. The president of 2020.
President The Rock. Yeah. Fingers crossed, man. Although I better get that interview before he runs for president because then I'll be absolutely screwed.
Yeah. The Rock. Why The Rock?
All right,
quick questions. Why The Rock?
So many reasons. He is the people's champion. He'll be a great president. We were just literally watching. Natalie and I were watching his old wrestling videos. It's just so fun to watch. But to know that he went from where he was to being one of the biggest movie stars of all time. It's amazing. What he does is incredible. But through all that, it's like whether you like what he does or not. He just seems like a really good dude, and he seems like a guy that you could share a whiskey over, and you'd be like you'd have a good time. So I'm like, I want to learn about his story, but also I think he'd just be somebody fun to hang out with. My question to you is, how do you think I should go about getting The Rock on the podcast?
Ooh, that's a great question. Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, that's tough.
Okay, you're gonna have to cut out all my brainstorming time.
Yeah.
I think I might have a good answer for you though. Mm-hmm. I think first I'd figure out what he wants right now, right? I think he's achieved everything. He has this huge HBO show where he's on the new Entourage basically. And if he is in fact trying to run for political office, I bet it's new for him, which is a good thing for you because he doesn't know exactly what you need to do to become, a presidential candidate. If you could offer him something that I think would legitimize him, some kind of platform to make him look like less of a movie star and more of a legitimate political candidate.
Ooh, that's good because I think the only appeal to doing a show with me, with only having had 10,000 viewers across all my episodes, is that it is you're gonna that's gonna be a story in and of itself. The Rock goes on this nobody's podcast.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
that's the story.
He's the people's guy.
The people's guy.
Yeah, the people's guy.
That's good.
You can let him put you in a headlock or something.
Yeah. I was telling my buddy this. I was like, I really want to I see that potentially this show could eventually become more of a TV show type format where it's a hybrid of a podcast and actually a little bit immersive where I kind of join my guests along for a day in the life, but then also we sit down afterwards to talk about life. Very up in the air right now, but I'm like, that could play in there where I go to the gym with The Rock. And my buddy's my buddy's like, you just want to go to the gym with The Rock. That's all you want to do.
That's
and I'm like, well, yeah, that's the whole reason why I started this podcast.
Yeah. And the other thing that seems to work really well for people is that they just offer to do something for free.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you want to get into this industry, just contact someone that you like in the space and say, hey, I'll work 20 hours a week for free for you. And they'll be like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. The only thing that doing something for free for The Rock doesn't really help him because anything he wants, he could buy. But I think reaching him in a way.
If you have a unique idea for what you can do, hey, I'm going to shoot a documentary about you in this specific light.
Yeah.
Which you have that background.
That's actually another one of my big lofty dream ideas is do a documentary with The Rock. I'm not obsessed with The Rock. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. Do you have
a fan website?
Yeah. I used to actually, when I first got into the internet and shit, it was Limp Bizkit and my brother had a Pokemon fan website. He had he was in the top 5 Pokemon websites.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty big. I mean,
Do you know the origin of the name Limp Bizkit?
Yeah. Actually, it was in like a recent episode of Silicon Valley.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I heard that, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's disgusting. Could you explain to everybody what a Limp Bizkit is?
Of course, you imagined it. You're just like, oh,
yeah.
God, that's horrible. It's one of the worst things imaginable.
Natalie's parents are listening, so we unfortunately,
sorry, guys,
we can't delve into what a Limp Bizkit is. Google it.
Yeah.
Just Google.
Or don't. Save yourself.
Yeah, please don't. Just don't image Google search it.
God.
That'll be bad. All right, let's get into at least like 2 questions here. I can ask you some of my favorites here. All right. What one skill should everyone learn, or most people learn today, that will come in handy 10 years down the road?
So hard to say because all your skills are going to be automated by robots. But maybe just writing well. Like writing well in kind of a Hemingway way, like a minimalist way. There's a fantastic book called The Elements of Style that is just a super thin book that you could read that will drastically increase the skill of your writing to make it more simple and clear and everything else, because it doesn't seem like that's going away. And it kind of applies to the way that you explain yourself in person too.
What's your favorite thing? Like the favorite object, like an actual physical thing that you own?
Yeah. I really like my Alexa-controlled LIFX light bulb. It's LIFX. It's by far the best, like Alexa-controlled light bulb. Doesn't require a hub. And what it allows you to do is you use the app on your iPhone or whatever, and you can choose a color, or like choose like a shifting, like it goes between orange and red over and over, like goes rainbow, and you can connect that to any command that you want. So I can say like turn on my night light, and then it turns on like this nice like yellowish, like low light hue.
Do you have a sexy time version of that?
I do.
Yes,
I do.
Knew it.
Like that was the intention, is like turn on sexy time. But I actually did.
You had a better name for it.
My girlfriend's name is Katya, and so I was trying to say like Katya. I thought you could do like say I think you could say Katya is here, and it would do a certain color. Turns out you have to say turn on and then something, but.
It works.
Yeah, so now if I say turn on Katya, then it turns this like this nice shade of purple that's like your favorite color. So yeah, I really like that.
That's great. All right, so I got one more question here. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about reading earlier, and how reading is, I don't know, people just don't value it, I don't think, as much as they should. So what one thing should people start reading before they go to bed tonight?
I mean, I think the number one thing, like going back to UBI, I really do think that's like a panacea that could really change everything. And I think it's important to be informed on that. So I think the article that I would read is and I think it's the Economic Forum. It's an article by Scott Santens, who is the most prolific author of UBI on the web. I believe he's like really big on Medium, but I think it's Economic Forum. And that's his like best article amongst maybe 25 or 50 articles on UBI that really explains why it's required and what it's going to do. So I would read that.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
I like all my music is very minimal.
Yeah.
Makes you think.
Oh,
it's kind of cool, right?
That's nice.
I want to start incorporating music like into the middle of segments. And
you should, like when someone says something really insightful, you like have a sound effect.
Yeah, or like applause. Like done.
Just make it into a cheesy radio show.
Exactly. Jordan, thanks so much for coming on the show. This was really great. I learned a lot. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.